if I remember correctly, we left off chapter 7 in Chamber of Secrets, in the chapter Mudbloods and Murmurs. And Hagrid and Ron explain the bottom of 115 to Harry and Hermione why mudblood is such a nasty term. Now, notice, Hermione usually knows everything about the magical world. Why doesn't she know this?
It's slang.
Keep going.
Something only she would learn if she actually lived in the magical world.
Okay.
It's not book smart.
Bingo. It wouldn't be in an approved book. It wouldn't be in a magical textbook. Okay? Which is what she's been reading. Yeah, it is slang also. So she's totally, dumbfounded by it. And then Hagrid goes on and explains. No, it's still Ron talking. Bottom of 115, top of 116. Talking about purebloods and such. He says, Malfoy thinks only people like him who are purebloods are good. Well, who's telling us this? Ron. And their family's what? As pure as the driven snow. I mean, they're as pure as anybody. They also happen to be what? Poor. Okay? To the Malfoys, the Weasleys are, well, let's use, Lucius Malfoy's term from earlier in the novel. A disgrace to the name of wizard. Okay? 3 different classes, so to speak, are referred to in the novels. I'll put it down here even though it doesn't apply. Purebloods, half-bloods, mudbloods, and muggles. Okay? Muggles, obviously, no wizarding ability, etc., etc. Purebloods, that's pretty clear. Mudblood, we are told, are people who are children or descended from Muggle parents. It's not one Muggle parent, it's both Muggle parents. That's a child who is somehow born with magical properties, magical abilities. Half-blood. What's a half-blood?
Muggle parent or wizard parent.
Is that it? What if you go back one more generation? What if your grandparents were a Muggle and a wizard, or a Muggle and a witch? Then you see where the problem lies? You get into the whole idea of, how much wizard blood do you have to be considered a wizard? I'm going to really, really try to not get into politics, but why do you think J.K. Rowling brings this up in second book, 1998? Louder?
My mind comes to Marx's idea of the bourgeoisie for some reason.
Okay, possibly. Any other reasons? Well, there is a pernicious idea in the 20th century, earlier half of the 20th century, pretty much gets squashed in 1945. The Aryan race, right? Okay. Hitler wanted, to breed a super race of humans, etc. But that's the extreme idea. That's really the extreme. Do we see that same kind of mentality to some extent, but not in the extreme? Yeah, we do. Because what is it really? It's the whole us-them dichotomy. If you're not part of my group, okay, then you're not whatever. You're not clean, you're not whatever the thing is. It's that, and I hate these words. Any modern word that throws phobia on, I absolutely detest. because usually the people who use them don't really mean this fear of. Okay? People are often accused of being xenophobic. They're not afraid of outsiders. They're not afraid, period. There's something else going on. Or homophobia. They're not afraid of gays. It might be a moral difference. That's not fear. That's something different, okay? Or pick your phobia, kind of a thing, okay? I think Rowling is kind of wrestling with the idea of society, even though this isn't used to describe Britain like it is the United States, of society as a melting pot. Why? Early 1990s. Take that back. Mid-1990s. When she's still writing the second book, Britain's going through a period of, some societal change. Why? Because the borders have been more opened. And you see a large influx of, how do I want to describe this? Non-English looking people. Okay? I don't mean Eastern Europeans. Why? Because they generally look like English people. Because English people are generally pasty-white. I mean a lot of immigrants coming from the Mediterranean, the Far East, the Middle East, North Africa. Okay? And, not the Far East, not India, Southeast Asia, man. Pretty much Southeast Asia. Pakistan, Afghanistan, those places, okay? Well, and there's a huge discussion going on. What's it mean to be English? Well, there are some who would say you've got to have, the Rothschild kind of name, and it has to go back generations. You've got to be able to trace your lineage to kings and queens and blah, 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 okay? I don't know that that's the case, but I think that's going on in her mind for a couple of reasons. One, she worked for Amnesty International. Okay, she comes from a mindset. She worked with Amnesty International for immigrants. Okay, she felt kind of a little bit of this when she worked in Portugal as an English teacher. Little this meaning kind of, foreigner, not accepted and such. So I think there's a reaction going on in her to some of the treatment of people who are different, okay? I could be entirely wrong. I've not read much that talks about that other than that more so in the last few years, kind of following up what we talked about last week, she, through Pottermore and stuff, is starting to give additional background information about characters, in terms of where they're from and things like that, okay? Or that there are more, who are the two, quote unquote, Indian characters mentioned in any of the Harry Potter books? Padma and Parvati Patil, okay? Probably Pakistani, possibly not Afghan. What's the other one, right? I'm drawing a blank. But she said, no. There's a lot of many others. Okay, and Harry's love interest, Cho Chang. Okay, Korean, but she has said after the publication of the books in interviews, she's not the only one from that part of the world. There are others, etc. Interestingly, somebody can correct me if you know this, I don't think she says that there are any Americans in Hogwarts. Okay? I could be wrong. All right, so we get that little discussion of half-bloods and all that kind of stuff. Half-bloods, purebloods, etc. And, Ron even points out, he says, look at Neville. Neville's pureblood. Neville's what in the first couple of books? Yeah, he's a bumbling idiot. He's a walking, talking mistake, essentially. And we're even going to see beginning of this book. Neville does something really low, really surprisingly low. But he does it because it elevates him. At least I think so. There's no other reason given in the book why Neville does what he does, and we'll talk about that. hopefully. Okay? So I'm going to skip a bunch more because I'm going to skip an awful lot of this one. For the simple purpose that, and we're going to skip a lot of this one too, these first 3 books are essentially what kind of books?
Children's.
Okay, more than that.
Prologues. World building.
Not really. What genre book? They are fantasy, but what's the object of each book? Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. What do we know about the Philosopher's Stone at the beginning of the book?
Nothing.
Nothing. So, keep going. Mystery. They're whodunits. They're whodunits. Okay? Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. The whodunit is Harry's got to do what? He's got to get to the Philosopher's Stone. How? Well, that's the plot. Okay? We don't learn the why until the very end. Okay? Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. What's the whodunit of sorts? What's the mystery? What the hell's a Chamber of Secrets? Then why do you need it? What's it for? What's its purpose? It's a secret. Okay? Notice, by the way, first book, Harry has to go underground, come back up. Second book, Harry has to go underground, come back up. Third book, Harry has to go underground, come back up. Fourth book, Harry goes to a cemetery and then comes back out. Okay, all kinds of symbolism there. Okay. Third book for a moment, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. What's the mystery? Who's the Prisoner of Azkaban? Exactly. Okay. So you have mysteries. In mystery, you get a plot or you get a problem at the beginning that has to be solved. All right? Oh, I never thought about wow until just now. The obvious Prisoner of Azkaban is who? Sirius Black. Is there an unobvious? Is there a deeper level prisoner? Not specifically, okay? Not specifically how do I put this? Answered in this book, though. Alluded to in this book, I think, but the answer is given in the next book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Because Sirius is going to tell us something in the cave outside Hogsmeade in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire about what happened while he was at Azkaban. Okay? If you have any idea what I'm talking about, don't say it. It has to do with the prophecy that's given in this book, not in book 5. Okay? We'll talk about the prophecy when we get there. Okay, so skipping very, very quickly, we get Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day Party. That's when we find out the year that this book takes place. Right? Because it's the 500th anniversary of his Death Day, which was October 31st, 1492. Add 500 years, that gives us 1992. Okay? So, it's there that Harry experiences what for the first time? Or it's leaving there.
Could you repeat that question?
It's there that Harry hears what for the first time? Or upon leaving it? He hears the basilisk. He hears the voice. Rip, tear, kill, etc., etc. So, they follow that voice. Actually, it's the second time, because you heard it the first time in Lockhart's office. They follow that voice. They go up to that 3rd floor hallway where the girls' bathroom is, page 138, 39. They see the writing on the wall. They see the cat, Mrs. Norris, hanging by the tail. Ron wants to do what? And Harry wants to do what? Totally opposite things. Ron wants to run. Harry says, shouldn't we help it? Why? No. Has nothing, that part at least, has nothing to do with being a Parseltongue. Louder?
Harry's a badass.
Because Harry's a badass? Okay, maybe. What's he going to do to the frozen cat?
That's empathy.
Bingo. Harry wants to help. Harry, he can't even help himself. He is a natural born protector. He is a deliverer. Okay? As we saw in the first book when he puts his arm out to stop Draco, when he goes after Draco to get Neville's remember all. Okay? So here he says, shouldn't we try to help? Run. We don't want to be found here. Who's the cat belong to? Filch is a warm, loving, caring, understanding individual, right?
Yeah.
No, not exactly. So, they do get caught. Next chapter. And what does Snape think should be done? Later book. At the very least, Harry should be removed from the Quidditch team. Why?
Because he's the sponsor of the Slytherin team.
Yeah, because he's the Slytherin, head of the Slytherin house and such. Why else? The fact that he wants Harry removed tells us what about Harry and Harry's abilities on the Quidditch team. He's good. He's good. He doesn't want him to lose. Who jumps to Harry's defense? Since Snape has jumped in, McGonagall does. Okay, but interestingly, page 144, Dumbledore says, "Innocent until proven guilty, Severus." Well, we're going to see later in the book, much later in the book, who's going to show up to take Hagrid away? Cornelius Fudge. What is Fudge in the magical world compared to in our world?
The Prime Minister.
He'd be like the Prime Minister. In fact, we actually see that comparison in Book 6. You get a chapter called The Other Minister. Okay? He shows up in that later chapter, which we'll look at a little more closely later. He shows up and essentially says, I've got to be seen doing something. It'll only be a short time. Where's the innocent until proven guilty? I mean, there's no trial here. Straight to, is Azkaban just jail?
No.
It's super jail. Is Azkaban like Alcatraz?
Yeah. Like worse.
How would it be worse?
Magic.
Okay, keep going. Dementors. Okay? Now, I'm sure when Al Capone was at Alcatraz back in the 30s, I'm sure those prison guards weren't also nice, wonderful, loving, compassionate gentlemen. I'm sure they kind of bent the rules a little bit, okay, on some of the inmates. But physical torture isn't mental torture.
It didn't suck his happy memories out.
Yeah, they don't suck your happy memories. They can beat you black and blue. They can kill you. They can't take away your memories, And your soul, yeah, or that, okay? So, let's keep going on. Hermione starts asking questions about the Chamber of Secrets. Professor Ben says it's no such thing. It's just myth. I mean, if Dumbledore can't find it, that's proof. Chapter 10, Rogue Bludger. Okay? So, Harry has a Quidditch match again. And he breaks his arm because he falls. Rogue Bludger comes after him. And he falls, breaks his arm. Who fixes it? No, who really fixes it? Yeah, Madam Pomfrey. Lockhart attempts to, but in attempting to, what does he do? He removes his bones. It's not just he bends his arm. I mean, several years ago, I slipped on ice outside my garage and totally tore my rotator cuff, which are the muscles that connect your shoulder to your arm. I mean, just all severed. And my arm did that. It was pain like you cannot imagine. I imagine it's probably like giving birth. I mean, I was kind of in and out of consciousness almost. It was that extreme. Take some aspirin, you'll see a doctor in a few days. Thank you very much. Okay? So, Harry doesn't have that though, right? I mean, the bones are gone. There's no pain at all. It's just his arm is like rubber. So, he gets taken up to the hospital wing. Oh, by the way, who defends Lockhart when Harry says he's a moron? Hermione. So, Harry gets taken up to the hospital wing to be cured. And who shows up on his chest? Dobby. Okay? Pages 176 and following. Dobby says Harry Potter came back to school. I tried to stop Harry Potter. Harry puts two and two together. Takes him a few minutes, but he finally, gets Dobby stopped the barrier. Okay? Stopped him and Ron from getting through the barrier. 177. Harry asks Dobby, why do you wear that thing? The thing that looks like a pillowcase. Why do you wear that? This? 'Tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement. Dobby can only be freed if his masters present him with clothes, etc., etc. Okay? Dobby talks about the bludger. Harry says, you're trying to kill me. Dobby says, no, I'm not. If Harry Potter only knew, bottom of 177, if he knew what he means to us, and then he tells us who the us are. To the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Who, other than Dobby, are the lowly, the enslaved, the dregs of the magical world? Is he speaking only for house elves? Probably not. Well, who else? Centaurs probably, but centaurs don't seem very lowly. At least not in terms of their attitudes about themselves.
Goblins.
Goblins?
Cellar ghouls.
Muggleborns, possibly. Mudbloods?
Physically, but giants, per se?
Probably giants. Because who's at the top of the magical world?
Wizards.
Wizards. Yeah, purebloods. But even these guys are up there. Okay? Non-human magical beings. That's probably who Dobby is referring to. Dobby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his powers, sir. Tells us a little bit, Dobby's not just, 5, 10 years old. We house elves were treated like vermin, sir. Of course, Dobby is still treated like that, but, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived. The Dark Lord's power was broken. It was a new dawn, sir. Jump to the end of book 7.
So sad.
Okay? Not the epilogue, but when Harry defeats Voldemort. When Voldemort defeats Voldemort. Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. So Harry is like a light shining in the darkness. And now at Hogwarts, terrible things are about to happen. Okay? So Harry says, I'm not leaving. One of my friends is a Muggleborn. Dobby, 179. Harry Potter risks his own life for his friends. So I'm not going to quote the Bible verse. You can look it up. So noble, so valiant, but he must save himself. He must. Harry Potter must not. And then Dobby leaves. Why? Somebody else is wheeled in. Okay? Who do they bring in? Colin Creevey. One of the few characters in the books I would have no problem with dying. Because he's so unlikable, in my opinion. Anyways, Colin Creevey's brought in with his camera. Okay? I mean, he does. On page 180. So we have Madame Pomfrey, we have McGonagall, and we have Dumbledore. And McGonagall says to Dumbledore, what does this mean, Albus? It means that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again, which tells us two things.
It's real.
It's been opened before, and it's real. It's not a myth. And it also tells us that McGonagall knows that.
It probably means that Dumbledore knows his location.
You think so?
I personally think so.
Why?
Because he says open again, that would mean.
That just necessarily means he knows it's been opened before.
Yeah. But I mean, the dude knows everything.
He doesn't know what the room requirement is.
Yes, he does.
Oh, yeah.
It's alluded to. It's alluded to in the next book, in the beginning of the next book.
I mean, they paint Dumbledore in the first couple books to be this all-knowing grand wizard who rules Hogwarts.
True, but as Dumbledore will tell us, he's not all knowing.
Yeah.
After all, what does he not know that Harry does know that enables Harry to get into the Chamber of Secrets? Parseltongue. Dumbledore doesn't know Parseltongue. Why?
You have to be born.
Only Slytherins, literal, okay, or only. Oh, how do I describe that? Yeah, only people who have some. That's a way of putting it. Only some people who have some Slytherin in them can learn Parseltongue or know Parseltongue. I'll explain my use of language in a few minutes. Okay, so McGonagall says, but Albus, who opened it? And notice what Dumbledore does. She asks the question, who? And what does Dumbledore do? It's foreshadowing. It's brilliant foreshadowing. It's little tiny foreshadowing, but it's brilliant foreshadowing for later. Dumbledore says, the question is not who, the question is how. How is it foreshadowing for later?
Because he knows that this Voldemort who opened it.
Not necessarily.
Because we know the other people are partial time. So,
Look at the letters.
Rearranged, just like Tom.
And then he waves Harry's wand, and it rearranges to I am Lord Voldemort. Not how, but who. Okay? Same kind of thing. She does a similar thing. Which book is it in? I can't remember which book. She uses the word not evil, veil, in the very next line, evil. And they're both kind of referring to the same thing. Okay? Just a little bit of kind of linguistic wordplay. Okay? So, did I say a question? Did you have a question? So, dueling club we're going to skip. Why? What's important? Yes, go ahead.
Quick question. Whenever you said how born Slytherins can speak Parseltongue, how come none of the Malfoys can if they pride themselves in being different Slytherins?
They're not Slytherins. They're in Slytherin house. They're not related to Salazar Slytherin. Harry's not related to Salazar Slytherin either. Go ahead.
doesn't Dumbledore understand partial tongue now? He doesn't speak it, but doesn't he understand it?
Understands Mermish.
That's what it is.
No, he doesn't understand it. He hears it. Because we're going to see, book 6, we're going to see Dumbledore and Harry take a trip down memory lane into Bob Ogden's memory. And we're going to see Bob Ogden, who works for the Ministry of Magic, approach Morphin Gaunt. Thank you. And Morphin's going to speak to him in Parseltongue. And Dumbledore is going to say, you understood that, didn't you, Harry? Harry's going to say, well, yes. And he's going to say something like, didn't you? And Dumbledore essentially says, it's Parseltongue. He doesn't...
That doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't understand it, though.
I think in the context it's pretty clear he doesn't. I mean, Dumbledore's going to say at the end of this book, Parseltongue is a special gift that only the Slytherins have. Not Slytherin house, descendants of Salazar Slytherin. Okay? Other questions? Okay. Dueling club's not important for the simple reason that nothing happens with it later on, except, louder?
The hairs on Hermione's robe for the polyjuice potion.
Yeah,
His signature spell.
but even that is not, in terms of the overarching plot, is not that important. Yes, Harry's signature spell is important, but we're going to see at the end of, not quite the end of book 4, towards the end of book 4, Harry's going to have a duel with Lord Voldemort, right? Voldemort's going to say, you know how to duel, you've been taught how to duel, and Harry's going to go, not really, because I had, who is his dueling master? That is the teacher, Lockhart. And what did he say? He whispered in his ear and said, wiggle your wrist. Meanwhile, Snape's over there, okay. Polyjuice potion, which is the next chapter. Polyjuice potion, page 207. Page 207. Harry goes up to talk to Dumbledore. And he goes into Dumbledore's office and he sees this scrawny, ratty-looking bird sitting on its desk and poof, bursts into flame. And he's like, damn, I'm toast, Kill Dumbledore's bird. Dumbledore comes in and explains to him it's a phoenix. Okay? Rowling obviously doesn't create phoenixes. They are mythical creatures going back thousands of years. And according to the mythology, what does the phoenix do and how frequently does it do it? It's reborn from its own ashes. It sits on its nest, and when it is time, it poof, bursts into flame, self-combusts. And out of that little pile of ashes, you get a little squeak and a little bird grows up. It's every 500 years that happens. So when Dumbledore says, essentially to Harry, you saw him on his, how did he call it? Burning day. Really very handsome most of the time. Wonderful red and gold plumage. It's the bottom of 207. Fascinating creatures, phoenixes. And then what does he do? Just like with the mirror, he teaches. He gives them very important and pertinent information. They carry immensely heavy loads. They're tears of healing powers, and they make highly faithful pets. They're also, in all Western medieval symbolism, images of Christ. Why? Resurrection. Go to the Holy Trinity Church in Stratford, where Shakespeare is buried, and on the altar, or at least there was one several years ago when I was there, on the altar is this beautiful woven tapestry. And the tapestry has this big, giant phoenix on it. Okay? Because the altar represents that. So, Harry talks to Dumbledore, and Hagrid comes in, says it wasn't Harry, blah, blah, blah. Hagrid leaves, and Dumbledore asks Harry, I must ask you, Harry, whether there is anything you'd like to tell me. Anything at all. Anything on your mind, Notice he doesn't lead him. He doesn't so, Harry, heard any voices lately? Walking around the castle, have you heard things in the walls? And Harry sits there and he thinks of Malfoy saying, you'll be next, Mudbloods. And he hears Ron saying, hearing voices in the magical world isn't a good sign, No, there's nothing. So what did Harry just do to Dumbledore? Lied through his teeth. And from what we learn later about Dumbledore knows, right? Okay, because he's a pretty accomplished legilimens, or legilimens, however you want to pronounce it. So, Christmas comes. Let's see here. They do the Polyjuice potion. What do Harry and Ron learn from Malfoy in their Polyjuice forms of Crabbe and Goyle? or Goyle and Crabbe, doesn't matter.
He's not there. So.
He's not the heir of Slytherin. Okay. Hermione turns into a cat, essentially. Very secret diary. Let's see here. So, what was Ron's detention at the beginning of the year?
Polishing medals.
He had to polish the school silver. You know, you win an award, the school wins an award, the school wins at a tournament or something, and they put all, you know, you've all seen high school display cases or college, you know, display cases and such. So, they're thinking of this name, T.M. Riddle. And they're thinking of the diary that they've found. And Myrtle talks about people throwing books at them and such in the chapter, The Very Secret Diary. It's got inscribed on the back, not inscribed, it's got, you know, the name of the place where it was purchased, Vauxhall Road in London. I've been there. And they know the diary's 50 years old. Okay, so Hermione does what? Well, how'd she get through the potions? First book, logic. Not the class, the actual potions at the end. She says, we know the person, 233. We know the person who opened the chamber last time was expelled 50 years ago. We know T.M. Riddle got an award for special services to the school 50 years ago, because that's what the plate said. What if Riddle got a special award for catching the heir of Slytherin? Ron, brilliant theory. What's the problem with the diary? It's blank. It's an unused diary. Might be invisible ink. Okay? So she taps it and she says, Apparicium, and nothing happens. Okay? Page 234. Back at Flourish and Blots for just a moment. I think it's this book. Back in Flourish and Blots, Harry and Ron noticed Percy reading a book. Prefects who gained power in their later careers or something like that. Page 234, Ron talks about Riddle. They found Riddle's name on an old medal for magical merit and on a list of old head boys. He sounds like Percy, said Ron, wrinkling his nose in disgust. Prefect, head boy, probably top of every class. Hermione, you say that like it's a bad thing. I mean, she's top of every class, right? She's not a prefect, she's not a head boy. She will be a prefect, okay, later on. Why is that significant? And why is it significant that Percy reads that book? Prefects who gain power in their later careers.
He does.
He does. It tells us what motivates Percy, which is what leads to the huge break, you know, in, well, books 5 through 7, most of them. Yeah, it's included in 7. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm skipping a bunch. So Harry, the diary gets taken from Harry, and he gets it back. Where is it? Page 240. Thus far, in the first 2 books, what has been our experience of Harry's experience of reading? He doesn't. Why not? Because he can't?
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to.
It's not interesting to him.
It's not interesting to him. After all, why read Hogwarts of History when he has Hermione right next to him, right? Because she'll tell him everything.
Why are you when you have Voldemort trying to kill you?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't generally. Is Harry a good student in that sense? Does he do all of his own homework? No. He and Ron cheat all the time. Okay? He copies from Hermione when she lets him, etc. But he gets this diary, and he sits in his bed, gets ink on his pen, and drops a blot, and it disappears. What's that immediately tell him? Not your average normal paper. So he thinks, okay. So he writes his name. My name is Harry Potter. Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. Now, I don't know about you, but at this point, I'd probably wet my pants and my head would explode. But Harry doesn't. How did you come by my diary? Notice this isn't an echo, right? I mean, this thing's talking to him. Someone tried to flush down the toilet. Disappears. And so, what's the diary tell him? I can show you. In other words, you don't have to read it. It can be like what? An immersive experience.
VR.
Yeah, talk about your virtual reality. In the first book, Mirror of Error said, what did Harry almost do to the mirror? He goes up really close to it. It almost wants to go through it, like in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, to go into the other world, but he doesn't. Here, what does he do? He goes into the book, which is what, one thing I've talked about, I think in this class, is kind of what we should do, right? We should let the book wash over us and let it do its work. Well, Harry does. But what does Harry not do while he is in, quote unquote, Tom Riddle's memories? How does he not view those memories?
He doesn't suspect Tom at all.
Exactly. He doesn't have any critical inquiry. He doesn't suspect Tom. He takes it all as being what? Truth. Like whatever he reads, well, it's printed. It must be real. It must be true. The difference between real news and fake news, so to speak. Okay? So he goes through, and what does he see? From what we understand later, let me put it this way. What does he see? Use the term I just used. Fake news, right? He comes out, and what does he tell Ron?
Hagrid did it.
Hagrid did it. Did Hagrid do it? No. Hagrid is framed. He learns this how? He learns it from a book.
Sure learned his lesson about reading.
Sure learned his lesson. Not going to read a book again. Could be the moral of the story. What else could it be that's related to that? How many of you have read, or have any of you read, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451? Glad to hear that, because far too many people haven't. One of the characters, Captain Beatty, says to Guy Montag, when Montag stays home from work one day, he says, a book is a loaded gun in the hand of the person who has it. How so? Because in that society, if somebody has a book, that makes them different than everybody else. And in that society, we don't want people being different. We want everybody all the same. Okay? What does it really mean? I mean, it's obviously not a loaded gun. What does a book give?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, ideas, power. What does this book give? All of those. It's false knowledge. It's lies. Okay? Rowling is going to kind of trace this thread about reading and about having a critical mindset when you read from here to the end of the series. It's not going to be necessarily in printed books. Excuse me. It is going to be in printed books. It's not, what kind of book is Harry reading here? It's a diary. It's a personal account. What does every personal account reflect?
Personal experience.
That person's personal experience. Okay? How is Hogwarts a history different from this diary?
It's facts.
It's factual.
It's fact. It's objective, supposedly. Okay, you can read historians today who say there is no such thing as objective fact. There is no objectivity. Everything is subjective. Why? Because Wittgenstein said when we observe something, we change it so that it's no longer objectively there, so to speak. Okay? Do with that what you want. I don't do much with it. She's going to introduce us to other writers later. For example, we're going to see in this book what's going to be our first and then second experience of Sirius Black. Anybody remember?
The first,
And then attack us, and then
well, the first
No.
is when they're watching TV at the Vernons.
First experience is in the kitchen at the Dursleys, and Vernon makes some comments about him. Harry sees, okay, Sirius's face on TV. What's the second time?
When he got to get on, when he's about to get on the bus, he sees a little big black dog.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that that's who that is.
They're talking
It's
about one
on the bus. He sees the Daily Prophet, and there's his picture again. And he kind of reads over, who is it, Stan Shunpike's shoulder? It's either Stan's or Ernie's shoulder. And he reads. Okay? What are both those representations of Sirius Black?
Negative.
Louder. He's the bad guy. What else? They're wrong. Right? They are entirely wrong. Okay? They're both an example of journalism. Who are we going to meet in Book 4? Rita Skeeter, who's also an example of journalism. She writes for the Daily Prophet. What would the Daily Prophet be equivalent to in our world? Don't say England. Let's use an American newspaper.
National Enquirer.
No, not the National Enquirer. That would be the Quibbler.
Fox News.
No, not Fox News. Fox News is not the mouth of the government, so to speak.
The New York Times.
New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, Miami Herald. I can't remember Houston's paper. The LA Times.
The
Okay.
Tennessee.
Tennessean. I mean, it works. Atlanta Constitution and Journal. Okay? That is those portions of the media that traditionally, you get some changes depending upon the current occupant in the White House, okay, that traditionally serve as what? Mouthpieces of the standard, what's the phrase I want? I'll use Eisenhower's construction. No, I take that back. I'll use the construction that Eisenhower used that I modified today to post to some friends. The military industrial intelligence complex. Ike warned, I think in his second inaugural address, about the military industrial complex, that there was this group of agencies and capitalistic businesses and such that if they aren't watched carefully will lead to kind of a government within a government kind of thing. He wasn't wrong. Most people who are aware of government, left and right, say he wasn't wrong. Where they do differ is to what degree is this thing good or bad. Okay? Anyways, what do we see her do with Rita Skeeter? She does what? In books 4, 5, she prints knowingly false stuff. And we have the government use that knowingly false stuff to try to do what? Blacklist Dumbledore, blacklist Harry, okay? Why? I mean, Rowling has got to have a point for doing that. Well, go back to 99, 2000 and stuff. And what's the media start doing with her? Well, you got my terminology, wacko Christians coming out of the woodwork, wanting to, some, I think, literally burn her at the stake for, her occultism and leading people, little Johnny to Satan and, all that kind of nonsense. And twisting her words such that after a while, she kind of stopped giving interviews for a while. And I think that's one of the reasons why she started Pottermore. Why? She wants to do what's called controlling the narrative. She wants to control, the whole Potter world, so to speak. Okay? So Harry comes out and he tells Ron. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. From what we know about Hagrid, would Hagrid have been able to do that? I don't mean, knowing parcel tongue and all that, because we don't know that that's required. He's got a broken wand, and he was expelled when? We were told, 3rd year. That's the year that Harry sees him in Tom Riddle's diary. Cornelius Fudge.
Did they ever say what house Hagrid was sorting into? Yeah.
He was a Gryffindor. Okay, so Harry hears the voice again. He's with Ron and Hermione. Hermione realizes something. So she runs to the library. They find Hermione frozen. Okay, and Harry says, "We need to go talk to Hagrid, 259 and following." So they go down to Hagrid's. I'm trying to finish it. They go down to Hagrid's under the cloak, and they're talking to Hagrid, and who shows up? Dumbledore. Okay. Bottom of 260. Dumbledore comes in, followed by Fudge. Okay. Ron whispers to Harry, "That's Dad's boss." Harry's like, "I know." Okay. 261. So we hear Fudge. Bad business, Hagrid. Very bad business. 4 attacks. Things gone far enough. Ministry's got to act. Hagrid, it wasn't me. Dumbledore says, Hagrid's got my full confidence. Understand Hagrid's record's against him. What record? 50 years ago. See, he was charged with it 50 years ago. He was kicked out of Hogwarts, and what did Dumbledore do? He allowed him to stay. He gave him the job of keeper of the keys and gamekeeper. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, taking Hagrid away, not going to help in the least. Now, got to be seen doing something. If it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back, no more said. In other words, it's not bad. Couple weeks in prison, he'll be fine. He's a big guy. Nobody's gonna, do anything to him. Hagrid, take me where? And notice Hagrid has this look of a deer in the headlights in his eyes. Okay? So, there's another rap on the door. Malfoy shows up. Dumbledore's been suspended. All 12 governors signed the letter. And Dumbledore says, page 263, towards the bottom, at the bottom, "You will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You will also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." For a second, Harry was sure, almost sure, Dumbledore's eyes flickered toward the corner where he and Ron stood hidden. Harry's almost sure. Doesn't mean he is sure. But where he and Ron are standing under what? Okay, if Harry is right, how can Dumbledore see through the invisibility cloak? It's magical concealment. We're told one of the things about, should I go there? About one of the items of the Deathly Hallows, which makes it different from an ordinary invisibility cloak.
It's unfailing.
Yeah. What I'm bringing up is there's a problem in the writing. Because later on, we're going to see Moody look straight through this thing. Okay? And yet it's described as, go ahead.
Not only that, but you can see it on your order's map.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Okay? I still haven't talked about this. Oh, that comes up. That's Azkaban. So, I'm still okay. So, and then Hagrid blurts out what? So Dumbledore's got this kind of high-minded, I will never have leaved until there's no one here who's loyal to me, and all you have to do is ask for help, and help will be given. And Hagrid's like, follow the spiders. Follow the spiders. And they're like, so, Aragog. So let's skip a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about Aragog. Harry and Ron follow the spiders. And the spiders lead him to Aragog. And Aragog's going to let his children, thousands of them, eat Harry and Ron. Okay? And what shows up to save them?
The car.
The flying Ford Anglia, which kind of like the Ring, now has a mind of its own, so to speak. Okay? So they put two and two together based on what Aragog said. The girl that died 50 years ago, Moaning Myrtle, not Mourning Myrtle, Moaning Myrtle. Okay? So the Chamber of Secrets. They go back up to the school and they talk to Myrtle. And we find out everybody's summoned back to their dormitories because someone else has been taken. They overhear the teachers. And it's Ginny. So, Harry and Ron go get Lockhart. Why?
They think he's being viewed.
He's the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Notice the abbreviation for that class. Dada. Early 20th century, there was a movement in art, or a school of art, called the Dada School, which was, one of its purposes was to destroy the idea of representational art. It was to destroy icons, so to speak. That is, images that spoke of something more than just themselves. A naked body to display the human form, the ideal of the human form, not just a naked body. Okay? Dadaists wanted to destroy that kind of mentality. Let's get out of this rigid thinking of everything as following rules and order and such. Defense Against the Dark Arts has this nickname, possibly. Okay? Anyways, so why else do they get Lockhart? What do they overhear the teachers say? They heard the teachers talk to Lockhart, right?
He claimed that.
And they told him to go fishing.
Come on, man, this is your job. That's what you're hired for. Go do it. Okay? Well, earlier we didn't talk about it. In the same chapter we talked about this. What did Hagrid say about Lockhart? Not specifically Lockhart, but about the Defense Against the Dark Arts job. It's jinxed. It's cursed. We find out later, book 5, how long it's been cursed. No, it's longer than that.
14.
It's been cursed since when Dumbledore turns down Tom Riddle for the Defense Against the Dark Arts job, somewhere back here. Every year they have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. You're fool to take on that job, okay? Anyways, so they go down into the chamber.
Is that why he gets mad? Is that why Dumbledore never lets Severus do it?
That's why J.K. Rowling did that.
It's time with
A couple of weeks later.
That's an interesting idea.
That is a very good question.
Man, this class can make you question. He has so many like.
No, that's because when he does allow him to,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
without giving anything away, when he does allow him to, it's after something has already happened. So, yeah, probably. Never thought about that before. Probably. So, heir of Slytherin. Lockhart obliviates himself with Ron's wand. Harry goes on. Harry sees the big giant basilisk statue. Essentially says, "Open sesame," and it opens. And he goes in, and he sees Tom Riddle. Page 307. Tom Riddle. There's Ginny. She's still alive, only just. So they start to talk. I'm going to skip most of what they say. And notice who opened the Chamber of Secrets. Ginny did. Okay. So they continue talking. Tom makes a disparaging remark about Hagrid, kind of like Malfoy, and Harry says, "He's my friend," etc., etc. Page 313. So he finally asks, "How did you escape? How did you escape Lord Voldemort when you were a baby?" Harry's like, "What? What do you care? Voldemort was after your time." Voldemort is my past, present, and future, Harry Potter. Notice, by the way, he's not afraid to use the name. So far, of everybody we've met in the novels, there's only two who aren't.
Dumbledore and Harry.
Dumbledore and Harry, because McGonagall doesn't. Snape definitely doesn't. Okay? So he does the Tom Marvolo Riddle. Shrip. I am Lord Voldemort.
Well, wouldn't if Snape said his name, wouldn't he show up?
No.
No.
We'll talk about that later. No, you have to do something else for one of those people, to bring him back. Okay? So, we hear Voldemort, a.k.a. Tom Riddle, page 314, say, I made a name for myself, scared wizards everywhere when I would become the greatest wizard in the world. Harry, you're not. Not what? Not the greatest sorcerer in the world. Sorry to disappoint you and all that. Using that typical British kind of idiom. And Rowling should have just, put the cream on top of the cake and said, sorry to disappoint you and all that, old boy, but the greatest wizard in the world is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were strong, you didn't dare, what does he say? Dumbledore's been driven from this castle. He's not as gone as you might think, Harry retorted. Speaking at random. Speaking at random means not really thinking, just whatever comes. And all of a sudden, there's music. And in comes Fawkes. Riddle, that's a phoenix. Fawkes. And that's the sorting hat. So Fawkes comes in with an old patched frayed hat. And he starts to laugh. Riddle does. This is what Dumbledore sends you? A songbird and an old hat? So, to business, Harry. Twice in your past, my future, we've met. Twice I failed to kill you. How did you survive? The longer you talk, the longer you live. He does what? According to, what's the bad evil guy's name in the first Incredibles? Syndrome. You monologued! He got to going in a monologue, And Harry just kind of feeds his rope to him. So, Harry says, no one knows why you lost your powers. I don't know myself. I know why you couldn't kill me. My mother died to save me. My common muggle-born mother. She stopped you killing me. And notice, 16-year-old because that's how old he is here, this memory of him. 16-year-old Tom Riddle, when Harry says that, I was like, well, of course, that's a powerful charm. And yet, he was 50 years ago, 5th year, 1565 minus now 12. 53-year-old Voldemort, when he goes to kill Harry, doesn't think when Lily goes, no, don't kill my baby, don't kill my child, that's going to be a protective charm. I know, crime of passion, heat of passion, he's not thinking clearly, he just wants them all dead. But he understands it now. He said, now I'm going to teach you the real powers. So he calls out the basilisk. And Harry kind of fights, and the fox fights, etc. Harry gets the hat, puts it on his head. Help me, please help me. You know, just throwing your Obi-Wan Kenobi almost. Harry kills the snake after Fox blinds it. But after the snake has already done what? Or the basilisk, I should say. Bit in his arm. So he's got the fang embedded in his arm still. Okay. Bottom of 320, Harry slides down against the wall. Why? Because he's dying quickly. And Fox comes up. Starts crying on his arm. Tom Riddle says, you're dead, Harry Potter, dead. Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. See what he's doing? He's crying. Thick, pearly tears. I'm going to sit here and watch you die. And Harry felt drowsy. Everything starts to spin. And Riddle blabbles on. Your mother died. You'll be back with your dear mudblood mother soon. Now, I don't think he means, oh, you'll both be in heaven with Jesus. I think he means you're both just going to be dead. Harry, she bought you 12 years of borrowed time. By the way, in the Old Testament, I think it's somewhere in Chronicles or Kings, maybe it's Isaiah, one of the Israelite kings, Hezekiah, is told you're going to die, and he prays. And God gives him 12 more years. I don't know that she used that number intentionally, but Harry thinks, if this is dying, it's not so bad. Even the pain was leaving him. Was this dying? And everything's coming back into focus. His arm is healing. And Harry kills Tom Riddle with the fang. How? Does he stab him?
He stabs
Run
the
him
book.
through what would be his heart?
He stabs the book.
The book. The book. And what does the book do? Yeah, vomits out ink, essentially. Okay? So, Harry gets them all back up to the staff meeting room. Dumbledore shows up. Dumbledore judiciously gets everybody else out of the room. Why? What scene is this? We saw it in the first book in the infirmary where Harry and Dumbledore had their debriefing session. Harry has one of these in every book except for book 6. He has a debriefing in book 7. Chapter's called King's Cross. Okay? So he has his debriefing. Dumbledore says, you must have shown me real loyalty, thank you, etc., etc. And he said, I bet Tom Riddle was interested in you. And Harry said, he said that we're alike. Did he now? What do you think, Harry? Dumbledore puts on his counselor cap. And how did that make you feel? Don't you like Satan? Tell me. I don't think I'm like him. I'm a Gryffindor. And then he shuts up. Sorting Hat told me I'd have done well in Slytherin. Page 332. Everyone thought I was Slytherin's heir for a while because I can speak Parseltongue. ... Why the ... Harry pauses. He's going to go on, but Dumbledore cuts him off. You can speak Parseltongue because Lord Voldemort, who is the last remaining ancestor of Salazar Slytherin, can speak Parseltongue. Now, if Dumbledore had just left it there, I'd write above where he said, because Lord Voldemort can speak Parseltongue, non sequitur. Some of you will have that on your papers. Non sequitur. It's what? It means it does not follow. That Harry can speak Parseltongue, what does that have to do with Voldemort speaking Parseltongue? In that sentence, we're not told. It's what comes next. Unless I'm much mistaken, he transferred some of his own powers to you the night he gave you that scar. Not something he intended to do. And then Harry does something that we're going to see him do several times in the remaining books. He takes Dumbledore's words and kind of like this, but slightly different, he interprets them. That is, he takes Dumbledore's words and Harry puts them in words Harry understands. Or this is how Harry means what Dumbledore has just said. We're going to see Harry do the same thing with words Dudley says in the beginning of book 7. Harry's going to take something Dudley says to mean, I love you, Harry. Okay? He transferred some of his powers to you. Now, transferred kind of sounds like what? Like Dropbox, right? He's sending him an email, so to speak. Transferred, moved across. Notice how Harry's interpretation is a bit different. Voldemort put a bit of himself in me. Transferred some of his powers. Voldemort put a bit of himself in me. Not just powers. Part of him. Dumbledore. Yep. Certainly seems so. Jump to book 6. Horcruxes or Hallows, you know. So I should be in Slytherin. Why does Harry say that? What's Harry thinking? I should be in Slytherin. If I've got some of Voldemort in me.
He's technically an heir of Slytherin.
Keep going.
He's inherently evil.
Really close. What does Hagrid say about Malfoy? Bad blood. Rotten to the core. Harry hears this about Voldemort, and he thinks, I'm bad blood. Something in me is rotten. So I should be where all the rotten people go. Slytherin. Right? Because we are told all dark wizards, at least in England, came out of Slytherin. We're not told that all Slytherins become dark wizards. They don't. Okay? After all, we're going to see book 5 or 6, blanking on which one, Horace Slughorn. 6. He was Slytherin. He's not a dark wizard. He's not evil. He's an egomaniac. He's a narcissist, but, you know, you can be those things and not be evil. So I should be in Slytherin. Sorting Hat could see Slytherin's power me in it, and Dumbledore doesn't even let him finish. Put you in Gryffindor. Harry's like, what? Listen to me, Harry. You happen to have many qualities Salazar Slytherin prized in his handpicked students. His own very rare gift, Parseltongue, resourcefulness, determination, certain disregard for rules. Yeah, I know. Breaking rules and such. Going into the restricted section of the library. Well done, by the way, because that's how you found Nicholas Flamel. Yet the Sorting Hat placed you in Gryffindor. You know why that was. Think. Notice, he says, you know why. It's in you. Come on, Harry. You can do this. I know you can. It put me in Gryffindor because I asked not exactly. which makes you very different from Tom Riddle. And then we get Dumbledore's all encapsulating kind of moral of this very expanded Aesopian fairy tale, or Aesop's tale. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. What's the moral from the first one? To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. This one, it is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. In other words, you can be straight A achiever and make bad choices. You can be scraping the bottom of the bucket, passing, and make good choices. And what's Dumbledore's point? Better to make good choices than to be ace supreme in whatever the skills or talents are. Harry sat motionless, stunned. Why? Whoosh. I think what Dumbledore just said went straight over his head. He's like, huh? If you want proof, Harry, that you belong in Gryffindor, take a look more closely at this. And he pulls out the sword. Blood-stained, hands it to Harry. He sees the rubies blazing in the firelight. Where are the rubies? They're in the hilt. What color are rubies? Red. It's going to be important in book 7. Really important. Because Harry's going to find this sword again, and his first image of the sword, when he first sees it, he's going to think it's a cross with red on it. Okay? And what's he see? Godric Gryffindor. And Dumbledore says, only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat, Harry. What's he mean? Only someone who really belongs in Gryffindor house? Or just as Voldemort was the last living heir of Salazar Slytherin, only a real heir of Godric Gryffindor could pull that sword out of the hat. It's the latter. Harry is a Gryffindor, a real Gryffindor. He could trace his line directly back to Godric Gryffindor, which we're going to see later on. Okay? So, Dobby comes in with Malfoy. Malfoy's a little out of sorts, let's say. Okay? Harry tells him how Jenny got the diary. You put it in her transfiguration book when you threw the book into the cauldron, and he essentially says, prove it. And Dumbledore says, oh no, there won't be any proof, but we both know where it came from. And let's kind of make sure that none of Voldemort's old things fall into any other student's hands, shall we? And so he gets ready to leave, and Harry asks Dumbledore for the diary. And if you're familiar with the film, what Harry does, imagine this is a sock. Harry pulls his sock off and does this. Wait, is that right? Or am I reversing them? Yes. He takes the sock off and he puts it in the book and says, Mr. Malfoy, you forgot this, and hands it to him. What's the problem with doing that the way the film does? If I were to pull one of my socks off right now, which I've been wearing since 6 o'clock this morning, and hand it to one of you, you wouldn't want to touch that book, right? No, you wouldn't.
He came straight from the Chamber of Secrets to Dumbledore's office, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that thing's grand.
Yeah, I mean, and he's been wearing it since, okay? It smells pretty bad. Because what could you do? I'm not going to do it because my book will fall apart. You open the book, and the sock falls to the ground. Harry takes the book, stuffs it in the sock, puts it in his hands. And he pulls the book out and throws the sock one way. He doesn't even have to pull the book out. If he just throws the book in the sock to Dobby, what's he done? He's given him clothes. And Dobby's now a free elf. And what does Malfoy do? In the film, he's walking with his cane. Not because he needs it, because he's a snotty upper-class prick. Okay? He's got that cane, and what does he start to do? It's not a cane. It's his wand. And he starts to say, Ava. And Dobby goes, you should not hurt Harry Potter. Okay? So Dobby saves Harry again. Jump to this one.
Could you imagine how pissed Voldemort would have been if Lucius would have killed Harry right there?
The one thing I wanted.
Well, could you?
A 2-volume series rather than 7. Yeah.
How do the Malfoys get their laundry done?
With the magic.
It's a good question.
Wondered.
How does Harry clean his room? Scourgified. It's done. Magic. Okay? Is the easy answer. Yes.
Is Wormtail a Slytherin?
No.
No, he was
He's a
a
Gryffindor.
Well, then he's kind of a dark wizard.
But remember,
I mean-
those lost diamonds.
I mean,
Is he dark or is
he had ill intentions when he was a secret keeper.
He's a coward. He's a traitor.
Wasn't he promised something?
He was the secret
He was-
keeper.
Yeah, he's a secret keeper. Dumbledore was originally secret keeper or promise keeper, and then it gets transferred. That's a good question. I don't think, I could be wrong here, I don't think that we're told that Wormtail is an actual Death Eater. I don't think we're ever told that he's got the brand on his arm, for example.
But do you have to be a Death Eater to be a dark wizard?
Ooh, that's a good question. No, I don't think so. Yeah, there's other kinds of dark wizards. I mean,
so, but you said every dark wizard came from Slytherin, but
sorry, I should have said every Death Eater. Every Death Eater comes from Slytherin. Sirius tells us that,
that makes more sense. I was like,
But he makes up.
which is why he says, Snape, man, all of Snape's friends, all Death Eaters.
I don't think Wormtail is much of a wizard. It's like, he doesn't do anything too magical.
I mean, he's an
kind of
animagus.
Voldemort's vessel.
Well, yeah, he is an animagus, which is pretty.
which is like 1 out of 11 people in the world.
But the only reason that he went with Voldemort was because he thought that that's where the power was going. He didn't betray James and Lily because he wanted to follow the dark side. He betrayed them because he thought siding with Voldemort would keep him alive.
Course theme, renunciation of power. It's not in Peter Pettigrew, right? I mean, he wants more power. Of course, he's a rat. I mean, he has. Compare him with his other 3 friends. Let's rank them in order. Who's at the top of that friendship?
The werewolf. Lupin.
No.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's definitely.
I mean, it's James.
Is it James or Sirius?
My bad. I'm a Slytherin.
Okay.
Can't have it.
It's cool.
I mean, it's James, but Lupin's a werewolf, so.
Lupin's a werewolf. That means he's pretty cool. But I'm talking, in terms of what how other people look at them. I mean, just jump for a moment to the passage in the bar, whatever the name of the bar is, the 3 Broomsticks, and they're overhearing Fudge and McGonagall and Flitwick and Hagrid and Madame Rosmerta, and they're all talking about, And what do we hear? Rosmerta and McGonagall, who do they speak about the most highly? It's James and Sirius. They're at the top. Then Lupin, and then Peter Pettigrew. And they're all like, man, why did you even have that Peter Pettigrew hanging around? The guy was a loser.
Well, McGonagall even said that she didn't understand why he was hanging around him. And she's like, "Well, I regret that now."
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. It's an interesting point because what does she, aka Rowling, imply there? We could go straight from there to school shooters. Right? Every school shooter. What's the history? Neglect, lonely, nobody pays any attention to them, or bullied. Every freaking one. And that's kind of Peter Pettigrew. After all, it's Peter Pettigrew who blasted 13 muggles. It wasn't serious. Okay. Outpost. So, Aunt Marge is coming. Describe Aunt Marge. Overweight. What else? Bitch. Okay, let's use the language. Go ahead. She has bulldogs. It's been said by some, I don't know that this is the case, but it I wouldn't put her past it. Her meaning J.K. Rowling because of her politics. Just prior to when she's writing these novels, the British Prime Minister in the 1980s, anybody know who it was? Margaret Thatcher. Okay. Arch conservative, close friend of Reagan's, close friend of Pope John Paul II. The three of them, a lot of people say, are the ones that are ultimately responsible for the fall of communism, the Soviet Union, that kind of thing. Not communism, because you still have North Korea and China, etc. So Margaret Thatcher, who was kind of the female Winston Churchill, Prime Minister, 1940s, and then later on again in the 50s, 40s during the Second World War. She was often or sometimes portrayed as a bulldog with her face on it. Okay? Well, if you know anything about an English bulldog, they're massive. Okay? They're stubborn, they're stout. If you get in a fight with one, you're going to lose. Okay? Marge, and she breeds bulldogs. Okay? A lot of people say that's J.K. Rowling taking a slam at Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher privatized a whole lot of industries, like the rail industry in England. Liberals and socialists really did not like that idea, which J.K. Rowling is. So there's a lot to go with her. Okay, so how else would you describe Marge? Pretentious. Vengeful. Okay, so why does Harry have to toe the line while Aunt Marge is there?
He wants to get a signature.
He wants to get a signature on that stupid Hogsmeade slip. Harry, like Frodo before him, shows he could have used a course in negotiation. He's a poor negotiator. Okay? Why? When you negotiate with somebody, how do you do it? From what position do you negotiate or attempt to? Power, strength. You attempt to get the most power on your side, or you attempt to project the most power. Okay? Who, in that dynamic, that relationship between Harry and Uncle Vernon, who really, really has the power? Is it Uncle Vernon? No, because what can Harry do? Imperious. I will sign this form. Or Imperial. I will sign it. And he signs it. He has the power of fear. Okay? But Harry thinks Vernon has the power. Why?
He's older.
He's older?
He's lived under his house for
Okay. Why else? What does Harry need? A signature. That's the power. Okay. And obviously Harry can't forge it, right? Okay. I say obviously, but we're never actually told that he can't. But you kind of wonder. So Harry gives Vernon what he wants. He'll behave. And if he doesn't behave, excuse me, what does that include? Where is Harry supposed to say he goes to school? One of her great inventions, I think. St. Brutus's Secure Center for Criminally Insane. And they let him come home? He's there like 7 hours a day. If you're criminally insane, what does that imply? You are a sociopath. You go there for 7 hours a day, and then you come home and live with normal people.
And then
It's
Aunt
just-
Marge's gonna yell at you.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. Okay, so he makes it through the whole week. One night, one dinner. And what do we hear?
Parents,
Pages 26 and following. 27 and following. So they finish off dinner. They get through the soup, the salmon, single mention Harry faults, meringue pie. Vernon talks about his business. And then he brings out a bottle of brandy. And he says, "Can I tempt you, Marge?" And she says, "Just a small one, then." And he pours. Now, when you pour brandy, you don't even drink brandy like you do whiskey. I mean, I drink whiskey, 2 or 3 fingers. Brandy's like that much. Why? Because brandy is distilled wine. It's really strong. It's like drinking rubbing alcohol that tastes good. Okay? So, he puts just a little in. Won't say any more than that. He puts just a little in, and what does she do?
Keep on going.
She does this. A little more then. Tilt it up more. Notice her face was already very red because she'd had a lot of wine. We were told somewhere in there, page 26, for dinner, Vernon had uncorked several bottles of wine. Harry's not drinking any, and Dudley's not drinking any. So that means Vernon, Petunia, and Marge. Define several. 4 or more? I like your thinking.
7.
1 is obviously 1. A couple is 2. A few, maybe 3. Several's got more than 3.
I mean, 7 several. That's how I do it.
I don't know that'd be 7.
I mean,
A bundle.
But it's more than 3. 4, 5, maybe. For 3 people,
Big people.
she's big people. Petunia isn't. Petunia's skinny as rail. So, Vernon and Marge. So, Dudley's eating his 4th slice of pie, which generally means how much? If you slice a pie into 8s, that's half a pie. Dudley's a pig. There's a reason why he got that tail. Aunt Petunia's sipping coffee with her little finger out. She's got manners. Harry just wants to leave. And Marge, 27, she smacks her lips and puts the empty brandy glass back down. She doesn't sip it. And then goes. Now, in any kind of polite society, any kind of society or home that practices a modicum of manners, you don't smack your lips at the table. You also don't go like Marge does. Excellent hospitality. You're normally just a friend. Pardon me. Why? There's 1 bottle. Yes, I have a spot more brandy, Vernon. What are we dealing with? She's an alcoholic, okay? And what does she do? She accuses Harry's father and mother of being alcoholics. Says they got killed for being alcoholics. As I expected. No account, good for nothing, lazy scrounger. And Harry's like, oh. And Vernon's, good idea, Vernon. More brandy, Marge. The fire's going. And he's thinking, more lighter fluid, you know? Go on, boy, go on. Proud of your parents, are you? Now, she's already referred to his parents as bad blood. Top of 28. It all comes down to blood, as I was saying the other day. Bad blood will out. Not saying anything against your family, Petunia, but your sister was a bad egg. They turn up in the best families. Then she ran off with a wastrel. Well, earlier when she was talking about it, she was talking about bitches and their offspring. And Harry's like, you call my mother a bitch, you know, and I'm the runt. So, you know, Harry blows her up and then leaves. So I'm going to skip a bunch. Goes on the night bus, gets off the night bus, and who's there waiting for him? Finch. Why? The reason it's given.
Harry thinks he's gonna
Harry thinks he's going
be like arrested.
to be arrested. He's going to have all kinds of things. And Finch, not Fudge, not Finch. Fudge says, no, we're not going to arrest you for a little thing like that. We're not going to. And Harry's like, last year, you're going to kick me out of school. Well, things change, Harry. It's not that he's the chosen one now. They don't know that yet. What is it, though? That's right. They think Sirius Black's after him. Okay? But what else? We're told I can change the laws unilaterally. So what does that tell us about the legal system of the wizarding world?
Very lax.
Very lax.
And also, Mr. Weasley, like in the second book, they said like, yeah, you wrote the laws so that there would be loopholes there for
To deal with Muggle stuff.
Yeah, so there's clearly it's very easy to pass laws.
Where are you going?
Emergency.
Okay, middle class again. So Harry's kind of like, I don't get this. So he gets on the bus, train. We're skipping some of the other stuff. He gets on the train. They get in the carriage with Lupin, and the Dementor shows up. I want to pick up with page 83 and following. What happens to Harry? Pass it up. What about Ron? Hermione?
No.
Neville?
Oh, right.
They're okay. What's Lupin do?
He's back up a Patronum.
He makes that thing go away, and he gives them all chocolate. Why?
Apparently eases the Dementor's effect.
Exactly. Okay. Page 87. Harry runs into, push down. Harry runs into Malfoy. And what's Malfoy say? You fainted, Potter? Is Longbottom telling the truth? Now, why would Neville do this? Why would Neville go down the train, because that's what Malfoy says he does, telling everybody Harry fainted?
You know?
I think it's the attention away from him.
I mean, Neville's not really the most liked character right now, so.
Neville didn't. I didn't faint, but Harry Potter fainted. I can do something Harry can't. I cannot faint in the presence of a Dementor. That's pretty much it. It's not because Neville's not liked. Neville's not hated. I mean, his roommates like him. He's just, Neville. And there's not a lot more to say about him. Okay? So, I mean, it's kind of a low blow there by Neville. But, yeah, I mean, you take your praise where you can, right? If you can stand on one foot and, jump 10 feet, then that's what you do, right? Talons and tea leaves. What professor are we introduced to? Trelawney. Come in. Sybil Trelawney, who is related to, what was her grandmother's name? Does anybody remember? Madam Cassandra or Cassandra. Does it start with a B or a V? I always get these two mixed up. I think it's Blavatsky. The reason that's important is because there was a real medium in the early 20th century whose name was Madame Blavatsky. It's either this one or it's this one. I can't remember which is which. Okay? So there was a real medium, early 20th century, who said she could commune with the dead and blah, blah, tell the future, all that kind of stuff.
Well, not only that, but Rowling's like of Greek mythology, Cassandra was the seer that.
Yeah, Cassandra was the seer. She was cursed with, she would see the future, but nobody would believe her. So when she told the future, it actually happened. And in the Greek play Agamemnon, she goes, because she's captured by Agamemnon, she goes, she tells Agamemnon what's going to happen when he goes home. That happened, she's killed there as well. Okay? Why is all this important? Well, let's see, I can take that off. Of all the forms of magical education that we've been introduced to, is there any that isn't held in some kind of esteem? Sprout, what does she teach? Herbology. It's not at the highest, right? But people respect it.
Neville's good in it.
Neville's good in it. Arithmancy, that we're going to see in this book a little bit, okay? Which is kind of the magical use of numbers. Divination. No, not divination. Transfiguration. Who teaches that? Anybody know who taught it before? Dumbledore. Okay. What Flitwick teach? Charms. Snake? Potions. Whoever the teacher of the year for Defense Against the Dark Arts. Okay. How many of those do we have in our world?
Divination.
Herbology.
Of the ones I've mentioned. Do we have herbology? We have horticulture, which is how to grow plants. We don't have the magical use of plants in our world. What's the one subject that is taught that we do have in our world? You said it. Divination. I think there's a place in Memorial Boulevard. You can go and have your palm read. You can go and consult a crystal ball. You can go and have tea leaves read.
Tarot cards.
You can have tarot cards read. You can go up to Nashville and, all over the place. Okay? Why does Rowling do this? Why does the one course or academic discipline that has a real world corollary, well, let me rephrase that. What's our impression of Sybil Trelawney? She's a fraud. She's a whack. She is a fraud through and through. How do we know? What has she done every year since she's gotten there? She's predicted a student's going to die. And how many have died? Zero.
Fixing to be one.
Okay? So how good is she at her job? Because divination means to divine the future, to see into the future, to predict the future. And so far, she's batting 0.
Wasn't one of the ones she predicted to die, Jane Beasley, in the second book?
No.
Nope. Harry.
Harry, okay.
Almost.
And Harry again.
I think the reason why they put that one on such a low standard, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rowling Christian.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I think. I think Rowling, and I don't think this has anything to do with her quote-unquote Christian detractors at this point, because I think probably a lot of this book is written before they start coming out of the woodwork. But I think she's essentially saying two things. This is make-believe, people. This is fantasy. And the one branch that has a quote-unquote real world corollary is utter bunk. It's complete nonsense. Okay? In fact, we're going to see other teachers say what about divination? McGonagall,
Imprecise magic.
imprecise. Dumbledore is going to say, at one point, I was getting ready to get rid of it until she uttered a prophecy that was right. And so he hired her. Why? For her protection. This is for her protection. Okay? So, Talons and Tea Leaves. We're just going to skip it because I want to get on to other stuff. Boggart in the Wardrobe. So who's the new Defense Against the Dark Arts? Describe him.
Werewolf.
Werewolf. More than that.
Shabby.
Lanky, shaggy, unkempt,
Looks ill.
looks ill. Okay.
Tattered robes.
Robes are torn up and patched. What's his full name?
Remus John.
Remus John Lupin. Remus,
Wolf.
Romulus and Remus, two founders of Rome.
Who are raised
Lupin, Latin from lupus. John?
John the Baptist.
Yeah, it's a biblical name. Okay, gift of God, something like that. Okay. So describe Lupin as Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
He knows his stuff.
Oh, he's so cool. If he looked, Hugh Jackman, he'd be totally awesome, right?
If you put Lockhart's body on him.
Yeah, okay. Definitely not the brain. So what's he do for his first lesson? I mean, Lockhart had Cornish pixies and utterly failed. What's Lupin have? The boggart. Rowling doesn't invent that. That's a Scottish mythological creature. Okay. Shapeshifter. So it takes the form of whatever you fear the most. So he finds one in the staff room, and he takes the students in there. And who does he have go first, and why? Neville?
Because he just got yelled at by Snape.
Because he just got reamed out by Snape, and so he's going to let Neville do what?
It is revenge.
Impressive.
Get his kind of revenge. Notice Snape's not in there, so he's going to teach him the ridiculous charm. So when the boggart comes out, do what to it, Neville? It's going to take what form? The thing he fears the most, that's Snape. So ridiculous. Put Snape in drag. Make Snape a cross-dresser. Not any cross-dresser. His grandmother. Vulture hat, handbag, whole 9 yards. Which is the other thing he fears the most. Okay? So we see people go through this. Where does Ron see?
A giant spider.
Why?
He's scared by the spider.
Because we're going to be told in this book, when Ron was 3 and Fred and George were 5, what did Fred and George do to Ron's teddy bear?
They turned it into a spider.
Fred and George were 5. Beginning of the first book of the series, they're in Transfiguration. They're learning how to turn inanimate things into other inanimate things. What kind of magic does it take to turn an inanimate object into a living object? It's pretty powerful. And they're 5, and they don't have wands. They use their father's wand, but what are we told? The wand chooses the wizard. That is, yeah, I could use somebody else's wand, but it wouldn't work as well for me, as we will see very powerfully in book 6, okay? Or excuse me, book 7. So how could they do that?
Pretty good.
I think it's a flaw. I think it's an error that she didn't realize when she later, in a later book, talks about some of the laws. Okay?
Maybe their brothers did.
Could be. So, who does he not let tackle the boggart? Fly to the fat lady. Neville screws up, so we're going to skip that. Leaves the password line around. I've got all my passwords on my phone. Just call me Neville. Grim defeat. Yeah, we're going to skip that one too. Go on to Marauder's map. 186 and following. We find out Harry's broom, after the Quidditch match, got beat to matchsticks by the Whomping Willow. And page 186, Lupin talks about the Whomping Willow being planted the same year I arrived at Hogwarts and such. Okay. Yeah, what a coincidence. In 187, Harry asked, why do they affect me and not others? Is it nothing to do with weakness? You're not weak, Harry. The Dementors affect you worse than the others because there are horrors in your past that the others don't have. Okay? What horrors?
His parents getting murdered.
His parents being murdered
Bible.
by Voldemort right in front of him. Yeah, he was a baby, but it was right in front of him. I can get rid of all this.
He fought a basilisk.
Fought a basilisk, that's, killed Quirrell, essentially.
Soft fluffy.
Soft, fluffy, okay.
I mean, I'd be freaked out. if I saw
Yeah,
a
I'd
giant-
kind of be freaked out. Big, giant three-headed dog,
Giant
too.
spiders.
That would do a little bit more than a big three-headed dog. So, he goes on and talks about Dementors. In one of her interviews, Rowling says the Dementors came out of her bouts with depression, especially following her mother's death. She was like 24, 25. No, she was younger, 22 or so. And her mother died of cancer when her mother was only 44 or 45. Okay? Well, think about this word. Every one of you has an advisor, or you should. And they may or may not be good, so we're not going to talk about those. Your advisor, another word for that is a mentor. Why? Because it comes from the word mens, which means mind. Okay? A mentor, the OR ending, it's a Greek and Latin suffix that indicates agency. Specifically, that one indicates masculine agency. So, etymologically, linguistically, it's not correct to refer to Angelina Jolie as an actor, because she's not male, just by the very sentence. The RES, or sometimes two S's, or the TRIX or RIX, okay, those are the feminine endings. It's not sexist to use them, it's just how Latin was formed. Anyways, so a mentor means kind of one who, what? Meant you. That is, supports, adds to, builds up, guides, directs your mind. Just like an advisor. So that's the ment. So what's the D?
The opposite.
It's opposite, away from. Take that off. Okay? So a Dementor does what to your mind?
Breaks it down.
Breaks it down. Ultimately destroys it. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glory in decay and despair. They drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air. Even muggles feel their presence. See Book 5. Get too near a Dementor. Every good feeling, every happy memory will be sucked out of you. If it can, the Dementor will feed on you long enough to reduce you to something like itself, soulless and evil. You'll be left with nothing but the worst experiences of your life. And the worst that happened to you, Harry, what? It's enough to make anyone fall off a broom. Okay? So, Harry, when they get close to me, I can hear Voldemort murdering my mom. Yeah, that'd be pretty bad. Yeah.
Doesn't it say in the book that the muggles can't see them, but they can see their presence? So, like, if,
They can't see them, they can feel their presence.
so is Dudley able to see them in book 5?
No,
No? Okay.
he feels them. What does Dudley say? Who turned out the lights? The moon and the stars disappear because he's kind of overwhelmed by this blackness. Book 6 opens with all these fogs in London. They're not normal fogs. They're the Dementors roaming everywhere. Okay? So, Harry says, any way to fight them off? Okay, we'll think about it next term after Christmas break. Okay? So, Fred and George come and they give Harry for Christmas what? Marauder's Map. Which does what?
Shows them footsteps.
Shows everybody's footsteps.
Shows everybody's footsteps within Hogwarts. Also shows what else? Secret passages, entrances, and exits. Okay? pretty cool. Moontail, Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Okay. So, let's see. Harry uses it, goes out of the school, goes to Hogsmeade, since he doesn't have the signed form, and he, Ron, and Hermione go in the Three Broomsticks, and in comes the group I mentioned before: Fudge, Hagrid, McGonagall, Flitwick, and then the barkeep, Madame Rosmerta, comes over. Rosmerta, by the way, if you're not familiar with her, is the name of a Celtic goddess. Goddess of beer. Okay, so she's the St. Pauli girl, so to speak. And they're listening to the whole conversation. Harry's hidden. They talk about Sirius Black, and what does Harry overhear?
That he is the reason his parents are dead.
He's the reason his parents are dead, and what else?
Killed 13 people with one curse.
And what else?
He's after
He's after Harry, and he was his godfather, and he was the best man at the wedding. Traitor. And Harry leaves. Chapter 11 goes back. And page 214, Hermione says, "You don't look well, you know, Harry." "Harry, I'm fine." "You must be really upset. You mustn't go doing anything stupid." "Like what?" "Like trying to go after Black." "Well, who else told him that?"
Arthur.
Arthur Weasley, back at platform 9 3/4. Harry overheard the conversation the night before. Weasley starts to talk to him. Harry says, "I know all about it. I overheard you. Don't worry. I don't go looking for trouble." Right? Because he doesn't. Usually just falls into it. Okay? Or it finds him. So, Harry says, 214, "You know what I see in here every time a Dementor gets too near me?" Ron and Hermione kind of like, and the look on their face is kind of like, "No, we don't want to know." But he's going to tell them anyways. "I can hear my mom screaming and pleading with Voldemort. And if you'd heard your mom screaming like that, just about to be killed, you wouldn't forget it in a hurry. And if you found out someone who's supposed to be a friend of hers betrayed her and sent Voldemort after her, Hermione, nothing you can do. You heard what Fudge said." So, Malfoy knows. Remember what he said to me in Potions? "If it was me, I'd hunt down." So you're gonna listen to Malfoy instead of us. Well, she's got him on that one. Keep going. What's going on with Hagrid meanwhile?
Buckbeak's on trial.
Who or what is Buckbeak?
Hippogriff.
Hippogriff. Why does Hagrid have a hippogriff?
Because he's the new mythical creature.
He's a new Care of Magical Creatures professor, which, this is probably one of those instances where Dumbledore, showing his age, maybe not the best idea. Why is Buckbeak on trial?
It attacked Draco.
Malfoy's disrespected it.
It attacked Malfoy because Malfoy was Malfoy and had what he got coming. Did it really attack him? Did it really hurt him? I mean, okay, he had a cut, he had blood, like a dog bite. You don't put a dog down just for one bite, kind of a thing. Similarly, Hippogriff. But what are we told about the Committee for the Disposal of Magical Creatures? Just the name of it. They're strict, and it's already decided. Okay? So, Hagrid's got all this going up. So there's going to be a trial. And Harry's thinking what? Revenge. Revenge. Okay? 220, 221. Now, before they went down to talk to Hagrid, what was going through Harry's mind? I mean, he and Hermione had just been talking with Ron, and one of them mentions Hagrid, and Harry says, "Yeah, let's go talk to Hagrid." And they go down and they hear all this about Buckbeak and stuff, and we're told, page 221. Because Hermione's, buttering Hagrid up, and Harry kind of feels bad for Hagrid. The trip to Hagrid's, though far from fun, had nevertheless had the effect Ron and Hermione had hoped.
To get his mind off of Sirius.
Say that again?
To get his mind off of Sirius.
To get his mind off of Sirius. Okay. What else does it do? When he's going down to Hagrid's, what does Harry want to do?
Kill Sirius. Or let him rot and ask him back.
Okay, but that's not necessarily in his mind when he's going down to Hagrid's. What you want to say to Hagrid? Why did you tell me? He's angry at Hagrid. Okay? So he's full of hatred. Not at Hagrid, at Sirius. But he's angry at Hagrid. He goes down, and what happens as a result of hearing about Hagrid? That anger, that hatred, gone. Why?
Because Malfoy is the reason Buckbeak is.
Okay, possibly.
And it's kind of the same situation.
His empathy is back.
Louder.
His empathy
His empathy is
is back.
back. He goes down full of hatred, and his empathy is awakened, let's say, or stirred. And what does that show us about Harry? Love and hatred cannot coexist in the same place. If you take love to be empathy, okay? Which wins? Because when Harry goes back up, we're told, though Harry had by no means forgotten about Black, he couldn't brood constantly on revenge if he wanted to help Hagrid. See, brooding on revenge, just the word brooding means what? Where's your focus? It's all on yourself. When you brood over something, all your attention's turned inward.
You're letting it fester and build up.
Exactly. In all the books, whenever Harry turns inward, he makes mistakes. Whenever he turns outward, whenever he focuses his energies or his attention outward, he helps others. Malfoy, Neville, etc. So, they start to figure out what can we do to help Hagrid. Okay? Christmas comes, Harry gets a present. He gets several presents. What's the present? The firebolt. And what does Hermione do?
Snitches to McGonagall.
Snitches get stitches, She goes and tells McGonagall. And why does McGonagall take it?
Because she thinks Sirius is cursed.
Jinxed. They think Sirius in it, and it's cursed, and it's like a mail bomb. It's designed to kill Harry. What does this do for Harry and Hermione's relationship?
Tears it.
A little bit rocky. Okay? So, the Patronus. Harry starts his lessons with Lupin. And Lupin says, I'm going to teach you, page 237, spell I'm going to try and teach you is highly advanced, Harry, well beyond ordinary wizarding level. It's called the Patronus charm. How far well beyond ordinary wizarding level? Based, for those of you who've read them all, based upon books 1 through 7. It's well beyond Newt level.
So then way after.
There are, Lupin's going to tell us, many fully qualified wizards who can't do this.
Does he give an exact number of how many people can actually produce a Patronus charm before he starts teaching Harry?
No, he just says it's really hard and a lot of fully qualified, that is adult, long out of Hogwarts, wizards can't do this charm. Okay?
When he says ordinary wizarding level, is he referring to the classification, like the 6th-year tests?
The 5th year.
Yeah, 5th-year tests. 5th-year tests. Newts are 6th-year tests. So it's beyond those. Okay? In fact, it's so advanced that when Harry does his Newts, his teacher the examiner goes, I hear you can do a Patronus. Can you do that for me? And Harry goes, hell yeah. And he does one, and no, it's 5th year. And he does one, And they're like, whoa, because they don't expect it.
I think that's
Okay.
an extra point.
I haven't read much past the 7 books. Is the Newt's after that Newt's Commander guy?
No,
Okay.
nastily exhausting wizarding test
Oh,
is what NEWT stands for. Okay,
that makes sense.
owls are ordinary wizarding levels. So he says, well, Harriet conjures up a Patronus, kind of anti-Dementor. So if you have a Dementor, and then you have an anti-Dementor, what's it really mean? Well, these two cross each other out. Exactly. But it's not a mentor. It's a Patronus, which is a protector, a guard, a defender, a savior, a deliverer, E-L, I can't write this late at night, I-V-E-R-E-R, okay? Where you see the word used most often is in the phrase patron saint, okay? Harry has sees himself behind a giant Hagrid and thinks, this will be cool. What's it look like? Unique to you. How do you do it? Incantation. And this is where she goes, I don't know why. To me, it's just silly. It's like Disney, just drops right in. Happy memory. It's like Peter Pan and Pixie Dust. And a happy memory. So think about happy memory, Harry. And he's like, okay, I can do this. Riding a broomstick. Expecto Patronum. This is the spell that's used. Expecto Patronum. What's expecto mean? I expect. Literally, yes, the O ending means I. But what does this mean? This means literally out of the chest. Out of the chest what?
I protect.
A protector. It's going to come from where? It's not going to come from the wand. It comes from inside. This is why a lot of people can't do it. They don't have the internal fortitude. Next book, Mad-Eye Moody, Defense Against the Dark Arts, first class, is going to teach them about the 3 unforgivable spells, sins, whatever they're called. Okay? And the first of them is what? Imperious. The Imperio charm. Okay? Or the Imperious charm. You say Imperio, you make people do things. And he puts them all under their paces, so to speak, and he does Harry 4 times. And at the end of 4, Harry can cast off, repel, an Imperious charm. What does he say it takes to do that? Strength of character. And he says, look at that, folks. Look at Potter. He fought it. He can do it. Well, why does Harry have strength of character and none of the others do?
He has a Patronus.
Is it because of the Patronus? No. It's because it and the Patronus come from the same place. They come from within. Well, what builds character?
Watching your mom die.
Yeah, that's one little thing. Watching your mom die right in front of you. Adversity builds character. Look at the difference between Harry and Dudley. What kind of character does Dudley have?
Rotten.
He's rotten. He's a bully, right? Okay? Look at the difference between Harry and Malfoy. When has Malfoy ever suffered adversity? Malfoy is what kind of kid? Spoiled little rich kid, right? Born with the proverbial silver spoon in his mouth. He's gotten everything he wants. Daddy bought him onto the Quidditch team. Harry, when he gets something, how does he get it? He earns it. He works for it, essentially.
His bank account wasn't earned.
Yeah, I mean, but he doesn't walk around flaunting that, does he? Okay? He doesn't walk around in brand new clothes he's humble, okay? But his adversity teaches him to do what? To overcome. He overcomes all of those situations, all right? So, he's got his happy memory, learning how to fly. Expecto Patronum. Expecto. Classroom, the Dementor dissolve. Not Harry, please, no, I'll do anything. Stand aside. Stand aside, silly girl. Harry comes back. You okay? Gives him more chocolate. What is it in chocolate? Dopamine, I think. Or it releases dopamine in the brain, which is the natural hormone that's released, for example, runner's high, things like that. It's essentially adrenaline gets released. Okay? Harry, I could hear her louder that time. Lupin, let's not do this. No, I want to do it. Okay? Lily, take Harry and go. It's him. Go, run. I'll hold him off. Page 240. Sounds of someone stumbling from a room, a door bursting open. A cackle of high-pitched laughter. You heard James? You didn't know my dad, did you? Yeah, we were friends. Let's stop, Harry. This is too... No, come on. Let's do it. And Harry does it. And there's a little fuzzy thing. It's like, way to go, Harry. Notice, what form does this Patronus take?
Stag.
Here?
No, shield.
It's just kind of a fuzzy, blurry light thing, Harry, let's do it again. No, that's too much. Okay? So, Harry says, so if you knew my dad, then you must have known Sirius Black, too. What gives you that idea? Like, shut up, kid. Sorry, he did. Yes, I knew him. Thought I did. Better be off, Harry. 243. Goes back to his room, and he thinks. Terrible though it was to hear his parents' last moments replayed inside his head, these were the only times Harry had heard their voices since he was a very small child. He'd never be able to produce a proper Patronus if he half wanted to hear his parents again. Notice what that's telling us. He does want to hear his parents. Just like when he looked in the mirror, he wants to be with his family. They're dead, and listening to echoes of them won't bring them back. Are they echoes? I mean, these are memories that are stored that he can't access normally. Okay? So, skip a bit more. He and Lupin do the Patronus again. Harry says, I thought the Patronus would make the Dementors disappear. Page 246, Lupin says, the true one does. He says, you're getting there, Harry. Harry asks, so what happens when a Dementor isn't stopped? Lupin says it gives you a Dementor's kiss. Well, what's that? It sucks your soul away. That's what Sirius Black deserves. Sound like anybody we've read before? He deserves death. He is only an enemy. Lupin. You think so? Do you really think anyone deserves that? Yes, for some things. All throughout the books. Remainder of this one, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7. There will be points where Harry will respond out of anger like that. So, yes, he deserves to fry, But then, a few pages later, sometimes many few pages later, Harry kind of steps back and responds not out of anger. Why does Rowling do this? Yeah. To show us that he's real. He's not a flat stock character. That is, he's got motivation, he's got plausibility. He sounds like one of us, in other words. Definitely not me. How old is he here? 13? Hell, fry him, man. Just, riddle him with bullets. Okay? I found out when I was about, how old was I? 19? 20? 19 or 20, found out that a guy who lived about 4 or 5 houses down, about 10 years earlier, serial murderer. Mass serial murderer in California. What was his name? Leonard Lake. Look him up. My sister and I, there's 5 kids in our family. My sister and I was the youngest, went for Halloween one time, and I was probably 9 or 10. She was 3 years older. The others were all out doing whatever they were doing. We started down our street, and this was back when kids would go miles. I mean, San Jose, 800,000 people, we'd go miles. Anyways, we went to his house. We never met him, but we went to everybody's house. In the house, you walk up, lights were on outside, indicator, come on up. Door was open in the living room, and we used to have friends who lived in this house before I moved in. The living room was painted black. Like the walls were all black. Okay? Little giveaway right there, And he asked us to come in, and we said, no, thank you. And we went on, and he started to follow us. And he followed us for about a couple blocks. And we found out like 10 years later, this guy had a big old farm in the San Joaquin Valley, and they found, I don't remember how many, somewhere between 10 and 20 bodies. Yeah, pretty weird. Okay? So, I probably would have at age 13 if I'd found out, I'll push the button, or push the syringe. So, Harry gets the broom back. Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. And what does he do? He can do an Expecto Patronum. Yeah, the only thing is, it's not real Dementors, but, practice helps. Snape's Grudge. What is Snape's Grudge?
James.
That
Okay.
let him walk into a werewolf.
Did he let him?
Almost let him.
Almost. James stopped it. Who was going to let him?
Serious.
Sirius was a piece of work, right? I mean, Sirius was a serious jackass. Okay? So,
He knew his name was jealous.
go ahead.
He was the other wolf, but he wasn't like a werewolf, so he would like do control.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see here. Lupin catches Harry, because Harry's been off to Hogsmeade, right? And what does he do? Plays a practical joke on Draco and gets caught. Because, his head was seen floating outside Hogsmeade. Runs back, Snape catches him, makes him turn out his pockets, and there's the map. Snape tries to make the map reveal itself, and what does the map do? As exactly James and Sirius and Lupin, Pettigrew probably, would have done. Page 287, Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape, begs him to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. Mr. Prongs agrees with Mr. Mooney and would like to know that Professor Snape is an ugly git. Mr. Padfoot would like to register his astonishment that an idiot like that ever became a professor. Mr. Wormtail bids Professor Snape good day and advises him to wash his hands of the slime ball. Snape, meanwhile, is doing what? He's getting ready to explode. Lupin explains it's a practical joke. Page 290. Tells Harry what? Go ahead.
Do you think Snape knows the nicknames?
No. No way. Because if he did, what would happen right here?
Like,
Wizard's drool. I mean, it'd be mano a mano, or wizardo between Snape and Lupin right here now.
Did anybody else know their nicknames, or was it just theirs?
Lily. She says it.
Well, yeah, Lily did. And I think Dumbledore. I mean, Dumbledore tells...
You saw proms that night.
Yeah, but that comes after he's had a talk with Sirius. So it could be Sirius explained, because he didn't know about them being animagi. I mean, he was like, woo, you pulled one over me. That's surprising. So, Quidditch final, we can skip. Professor Trelawney's prediction. Trying to finish. Okay. So, Harry has his final with Professor Trelawney. What is her prediction? Page 324. And notice what comes right after it. Hagrid loses his appeal for Buckbeak. Trelawney's prediction.
The Dark Lord will come back.
It will happen tonight. The Dark Lord lies alone and friendless, abandoned by his followers. His servant has been chained these 12 years. Tonight, before midnight, the servant will break free and set out to rejoin his master. The Dark Lord will rise again with the servant's aid, greater and more terrible than ever he was. Tonight, before midnight, the servant will set out to rejoin his master. Who is the servant?
Barty Crouch Jr.
Ah. Is it Peter Pettigrew? Or is it Barty Jr.?
Isn't it technically
That's
Peter?
the other prisoner of Azkaban, isn't it?
Ah.
Cannot believe it.
You spoke about it.
See, story-wise, she's a genius. Writing-wise, she needs work. These need work. Like I said, read her detective fiction because she's had another 10 years to develop her craft. And her detective fiction doesn't have holes and errors. For example, Lupin's going to say, late, when they're down in the tree or when they're in the shrieking shack, he's going to say, that Dumbledore let me come. But when he says that, he's going to say, Dumbledore became headmaster, then Dumbledore became headmaster, and he allowed me to come. The implication is Dumbledore became headmaster shortly before Lupin was admitted to school. That can't be. Dumbledore became headmaster shortly after Tom Riddle leaves Hogwarts in 1945. Because Tom Riddle comes back only a few years later. That's why I said I had 1950, 1955, sometime around there. Lupin doesn't start Hogwarts until 72 or 73. He's the same age as James and Lily. Born 61, I think he is. Dumbledore's been headmaster at Hogwarts for, probably 20 years by this time. Okay? It's just a little detail. That's why it took Tolkien 17 years to complete Lord of the Rings. Because he kept going back and fixing all the... When you create an imaginary world like that, you've got so many threads that you've got to... And by the time of books 4 through 7, Rowling had people breathing down her neck. We want the next book. We want the next book. Tolkien didn't have that for The Lord of the Rings. He had it all 3 volumes done at once. Can you imagine if he'd had the first volume and then all these people, wanted it, and then you had to wait 2 years? I mean, they did have to wait. The only reason they had to wait is the publisher wanted to make sure that one sold. And it did. Okay? So, you get that prophecy. Now, almost everybody says, it's Peter Pettigrew. Why? How has he been chained?
He said to stay with the Weasleys. I know, right?
In his Animagus form. He hasn't been able to get out of the Animagus form for 12 years. Well, what are we going to see when they make their way shortly back up to Hogwarts after being in the Shrieking Shack? What comes out from behind the clouds? The full moon does. And Lupin goes all werewolfy, and that makes Sirius transform into a dog so that Lupin doesn't harm anyone, which means Peter Pettigrew can scurry away. Okay? I think it is Barty Crouch that the prediction is talking about. The prisoner probably literally is definitely Sirius. I think there can be another one too, though, because Barty Crouch was also a prisoner.
And not to mention,
Of
like,
Azkaban.
immediately after this.
That's not what
Yeah, let's not give away too much stuff. Okay, so go on. Cat, rat, and dog. They go down, they follow the cat, rat, and dog into the tree, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione come in, or Harry, Hermione follow the dog with Ron. Ron's on the four-poster bed, injured. There's Sirius Black, now transformed back. And Ron tells him, be careful. And Sirius tells Ron, be careful, you don't want to hurt that anymore. Okay, they think he's going to kill them, right? They think Sirius is going to kill Harry, and probably them too, since he's already killed 13 muggles. So if you're going to kill somebody, why would you tell them, be careful or you're going to harm your wound more? You wouldn't. So, 352-53, Lupin's explaining about the Shrieking Shack and how he got accepted. That's this stuff. It's not a Shrieking Shack. It's where he goes when he transforms. Okay? So, they talk about it. He says, my friends noticed once a month, I disappeared, etc. So, they started learning Animagus Charm when? Third year, they finally perfected it, were able to do it. 5th year. Notice, 3rd year is when Hagrid gets kicked out. It's also when Hagrid is charged with opening the Chamber of Secrets. 5th year is what Tom Riddle is when Hagrid does that. Which shows, Tom Riddle, pretty good magician by 5th year. But what does this also tell us about James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter?
They're also very.
After all, Hermione's going to say, he can't be. There's only been 7 registered Animagi. I think it is in the 20th century. What does Lupin say?
They weren't registered.
Yeah, that's the registered ones. Who else do we know of? Is a
Skeeter.
McGonagall, Rita Skeeter. Tonks is an
Something. Metamorphosis.
Like
Metamorph Magi, something like, I can never remember what it's called. Anamorphagi, whatever it is. Do you remember what it is? Yeah, something like that. She can take different shapes. Okay? They can only become one shape. James can never turn into a rat because he's gotten one form. There's some indication, and I don't know that Rowling has ever said anything, or there is some speculation that Dumbledore might be one.
What's the speculation for Dumbledore?
Pardon?
What's the speculation for Dumbledore?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Just how he knows everything.
No, there is some speculation back about 2000, I don't remember what it was, 4 or 5 or 6.
Wasn't it the one were they like trying to connect him to his phoenix?
Yeah, I think it was that, not that he was Fawkes, but that he could become a phoenix, so that when he died and, a phoenix-like figure kind of flew off of his tomb, that was really Dumbledore, and he wasn't really dead. When the book first came out, there was a big whole theory that Dumbledore wasn't really dead. All right. Okay, Servant of Voldemort. 8:30. Snape shows up. Harry, Ron, and Hermione all use Expelliarmus on him. They curse the teacher. They stun him, etc. They talk about Peter being, Scabbers being an Animagi. And 370 and following, they start now to address Peter. You never did anything for anyone unless you could see what was in it for you. Sirius says. Voldemort's been in hiding for 15 years. 15? How many years has it been since he tried to kill Harry? Harry's now 13. Harry was 1, so that's 12. So was he in hiding for 3 years before then?
He was killing people.
He was killing people. I don't know that he was in hiding, but I don't know. Anyways, Sirius explains why he didn't go crazy while in Azkaban. He knew he was innocent, and that wasn't a happy thought. I just read another account yesterday or this morning. Guy convicted of something in New York. Been in prison for 26 years. Proven innocent. 26 years. Proven innocent and released. It's just literally like yesterday or this morning. Okay? So, Remus and Sirius forgive each other and they make Peter transform. 374. And Peter says, after he begs Harry for mercy, Sirius, what could I have done? The Dark Lord, you have no idea. He has weapons you can't imagine. I was scared, Sirius. I was never brave like you and Remus and James. I never meant it to happen. Don't lie. You'd been passing information to him for a year before Lily and James died. In other words, you'd been passing information to him ever since Harry was born. Because that was a year before James and Lily died. All right? What was there to be gained by refusing him? Peter asks. Notice, Sirius takes that question and does like Harry does earlier at the end of book 2 with Dumbledore. He rephrases it. What was there to be gained by fighting the most evil wizard who has ever existed? So, Peter says, what was there to be gained by refusing him? What was there to be gained by fighting the most evil wizard who ever existed? Notice what information Sirius throws in. He qualifies the him. The most evil wizard who ever existed. So what's there to be gained? Sirius doesn't imply nothing. Only innocent lives, Peter. Only innocent lives. Such as we can jump from here to the end of book 5 when Dumbledore explains the prophecy to Harry. And what does Dumbledore tell Harry about the mistake he's made? I cared for you too much. What did I care about the lives of nameless people? That is, people who will die because I tried to keep you alive. Well, that's kind of the same kind of innocent lives. Who are some of those innocent lives? Actually, don't answer that question. So some of you haven't finished it yet. So, Pettigrew, he would have killed me. Then you should have died. Does he finish just there? No. You should have died. You should have been the sacrifice, Peter. Come on, you could do it. Died rather than betray your friends, as we would have done for you. We would have died for you, Peter, even though you're a rat. Now that's Black saying that now, after spending 12 years in Azkaban for a crime he didn't do, saying, I would have done that 12 years ago for you. That is, even knowing everything, he says, this is what we would have done then. So they raise their arms. You should have realized, if we got you, we're going to kill you. In other words, we would have died for you back then, but now, no, we're going to kill you now. I spent 12 years for murder. I'm going to do the crime for the time, And Harry runs out, places himself in front, and says, you can't. Harry, we'll take him up to the castle. He can go to Azkaban. My dad wouldn't have wanted this to happen. My dad wouldn't have wanted you to become killers. Wouldn't have wanted them to become killers just for you. Notice, Harry at this point knows nothing about what killing does to you. Right? He doesn't learn about that until the 6th book. What's that tell us, however, about Peter Pettigrew? Because we're told if you kill someone, murder. I don't think self-defense is probably included there. I could be wrong. If you kill someone, you split your soul. You kill 2 someone, you split it again. So, here's your soul. You split it. I don't remember the biology. Is this called mitosis or meiosis? So you split it again, or you go from 1 to 4s, and you split it again. Does that then go to 8 pieces? Or is it, is it 1, 2, 3, and you keep splitting it like that? Not really sure how that works. But at the bare minimum, he's got what? 14 slivers of soul. Not because he's put them in, Horcruxes and stuff. It's just Peter's fragmented, right? So they go ready to go up to the college, back up to the school. Dementors kiss, so I'm going to skip a bunch. They get up to the school, Snape's back awake and such, and Dumbledore takes Harry and Hermione aside for a moment and says, I can't do anything. You got to understand Snape's version is much more believable than yours. He says, but all we need is time. Time, Hermione. She's like, oh, okay. 3 turns ought to do it. And by introducing that, what does Rowling do? What problem does she create? The time paradox. Everybody who tries to introduce a time element, the latest Avengers does it, and it still doesn't work. You create the time paradox. Can I go back in time and change time? Because if you go back in time and change time, according to one understanding of time, time is a stream. And if you go back to this time and change something, you change the stream. So everything that in your time had happened from this time on no longer happened. Well, then how could you go back to this time in the first place? It's a paradox. You cannot solve the problem. So she creates the problem. Why only go back a few hours? See, within the body of this, or I think even the next book until you get to the end, we're not given any restrictions in terms of how time turners work. We are told they're regulated by the ministry. There's a room in the Department of Mysteries at the Ministry of Magic, the time room, where we're going to see all the time turners get destroyed. Okay? But that's not till the end of the next year. So, if you have a time turner and you know this nice, wonderful little 11-year-old boy who tortures his little friends in the orphanage that he's at is going to become the greatest dark wizard in the world, why don't you take one of those time turners and turn that sucker way, 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 way back so that when mom delivers the baby at the orphanage, oops, he gets left outside in the cold for a few days. Infanticide. Why not abortion? Rowling supports abortion. Why not go back and, Tom Riddle Sr. so that he can't...
There's no Tom Riddle Jr.
I mean, if you're going to have time travel, why not stop the problem at its head? Books, I mean, she's got 4 more books to write, okay? That's every author who does that. They create a problem they can't then dig themselves out of. The way she attempted to is in some interviews, or Pottermore, I can't remember, she said, they were regulated or something so that you could only go back a certain number of years, I think, like 5 or something like that. But then they also all get destroyed in book 5. Except I think the Cursed Child, which I've never finished because I've read the first like 10 pages about vomited.
That's the whole plot device.
Yeah, which is a huge problem. I had students, because last time I taught in London, I had students see the play because it was opening year for the play. They loved the choreography, the set design, all that kind of stuff. The play itself was toilet paper used. Okay, so they save Sirius and themselves. We see the person who does the Patronus charm. Harry thinks it's his father, and then he realizes it's himself. They go back up, and they see Dumbledore. Snape is losing his ever-loving mind. And pages 424 and 25, Harry has his debriefing. Well, what has Snape done after he comes back to a little bit of sanity? In the ensuing time, in the night between Sirius escaping and Harry having his talk with Dumbledore, what does he accidentally let slip to the students? Lupin's a werewolf. Well, kind of accidentally. I mean, so the letters are starting to come because parents don't want their children being taught by a werewolf because they're dangerous. So Lupin resigns, okay? Tells Harry, etc., talks about his dad, and Harry meets up with Dumbledore, page 425. Lupin leaves. Harry sits down. Dumbledore says, "Why so miserable, Harry? You should be proud of yourself after last night. It didn't make any difference. Pettigrew got away. It didn't make any difference." Dumbledore, made all the difference in the world, Harry. You helped uncover the truth. You saved an innocent man from a terrible fate, right? After all, what were they going to do to Sirius? Dementor's kiss. What were they going to do to Buckbeak? Dinner. Harry thinks, because Dumbledore says the word terrible. Trelawney went very strange, really stranger than usual. Yes, and he mentions the prophecy. Huh. Brings your total of real predictions up to 2. I should offer a pay raise to 426. Dumbledore jokes about it. Harry, I stopped Sirius and Professor Lupin from killing Pettigrew. That makes it my fault if Voldemort comes back. Notice the logic there. I stopped Lupin and Sirius from killing Pettigrew. Okay? So if Voldemort comes back, it's my fault. What's he removed from the equation? Put in a shorter way, Pettigrew has what? Free will. Harry's denying him that free will by saying, because I stopped them from killing him, therefore, this is what's going to happen. Voldemort's going to come back. Dumbledore, it does not. Notice, short and simple. It does not. Hasn't your experience with the Time Turner taught you anything, Harry? Consequences of our actions are always so complicated, so diverse, that predicting the future is a very difficult business indeed. In other words, yes, you did stop them from killing Peter Pettigrew. What does that mean? Peter Pettigrew is alive. He will go on. And that means he can do what? He can run back to Voldemort. Prophecy. Notice what Harry's doing there. He's applying the prophecy to Peter Pettigrew. Does Dumbledore think maybe it applies to somebody else? Don't know. Don't think so. Dumbledore doesn't know about the other person at this point. What else? Trelawney, bless her, is living proof of that. You did a very noble thing and say, but if he comes back to power, Pettigrew owes his life to you. You've sent Voldemort a deputy who is in your debt. A deputy, a right-hand man, who what?
Is in your debt.
Owes you, Harry. And look at the language he uses. When one wizard saves another wizard's life, where have we heard that earlier in the novel? James and Snape. James saved Snape's life by stopping him from going into the Whomping Willow. And that did what? That created a debt, or as Dumbledore calls it here, a bond. What's a bond? That means you're bound, like a chain that connects you. Harry's mother did what? Created that bond to Harry. She saved him. That stopped Voldemort from being able to kill Harry. It creates a bond, and I'm much mistaken if Voldemort wants his servant in the debt of Harry Potter. Ooh, I never thought of that. Because Harry saved Peter Pettigrew, could Voldemort kill Pettigrew? He saved Pettigrew just like Harry's mother saved him.
But you didn't say Pettigrew's love.
And he wouldn't save him from Voldemort.
True. He didn't save him from Voldemort.
He's not defending Pettigrew like Lily was defending Harry. Like he wasn't, like there's no actively jumping.
Yeah.
Voldemort's
Okay, you're getting into motivation. Thomas Aquinas, most people don't read. Thomas Aquinas essentially said the act is what's important, but the motivation not as much. I mean, he does say the motivation is important, but it's Harry's saving him. Yeah.
But if you think about it, without trying to give anything away, with
Yeah,
what
it's just- I
happens
have to
in
look
book
this one.
7,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But did Harry really save him? Because, I mean, he was saving Buckbeak and Sirius, and he just got away. So is that really saving
No,
him?
I mean, when he goes and he stands in front of Peter Pettigrew, when Lupin and Sirius both have their wands out, they're getting ready to blast him. Okay? And he stands in front and blocks them. Okay? It's just a question. I've literally never thought of it before, and it's just, now it's going to trouble me.
I mean, he protects them permanently from Sirius and James, but not necessarily anyone else.
Sirius and Remus.
Not Sirius
Yeah.
and James. Sirius and
James is dead. And as we hear later, you can never bring the dead back.
That's what you think.
So, I don't want a connection with Pettigrew. He betrayed my parents. Magic at its deepest, its most impenetrable, Harry. J.K. Rowling said in, I believe, one interview, and I can't remember which one. She said in one interview that there's a reason that there are 7 books in the Harry Potter novels. And that's because C.S. Lewis had 7 books in the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay? May or may not be true. I mean, that's what she said. There's also another reason. There's 7 years that they spend at school, and she's writing a typical, in one sense, British schoolboy kind of series of books. Other people have written the same kind of books. Not fantasy, but about somebody's years in a kind of an English boarding school. At the end of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, we are told that the magic that brings Aslan back from the dead is magic from beyond the dawn of time. It's deep, it's impenetrable. Now, she's also said that if she walks into a room that has the Chronicles of Narnia in like a bookcase in a library, she cannot physically stop herself from going up and pulling one of the books off and starting to read. Kind of like if you ever saw Mel Gibson's Conspiracy Theory. And the character in it, who's a whack job, ex-CIA, but he's whacked out because of acid and stuff, he buys Catch-22. If he goes into a bookstore, he has to find Catch-22 and buy it. It's part of the brainwashing that was done with him. Okay, I don't know that the relation to Chronicles of Narnia is there or not, but when he says magic at its deepest, most impenetrable, blah, 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 kind of has echoes. Time may come when you will be very glad you saved Peter Pettigrew's life. sound like anything else? For good or ill, my heart tells me Gollum's fate is bound up with the fate of the ring. Okay? It's very, very similar. I saw a hand up, I thought. Yes.
When you were talking about seven's used a lot in the series because like there's 7 years, 7 Weasley siblings, 7 floors at Hogwarts.
The vault that Sirius left him.
And there's like
It had a 7 in it.
Did Sirius left him or his parents? 613 in Gringotts?
well
It
713
was
was the vault in Gringotts.
Was
Yeah.
it 713? Okay, I thought it was.
Oh.
Well, notice, yeah.
Where is it?
They're all prime numbers.
7.
7 is the perfect number.
Yeah, in
It's-
433, it's 711.
711, okay? Also prime numbers. I mean, they're both
Yeah.
prime numbers in there.
3 is also important.
yeah. In Christian symbolism,
The Trinity.
1 God, 3 the Trinity, and I'm drawing a blank on 7. 7's in there also. Yeah, I mean the 7 deadly sins, the 7 cardinal virtues. Jacob had 12 sons. I'm trying to remember what the 7 is. 7 lampstands, 7 churches, 7 angels in the book of Revelation. Okay, so there's all kinds of stuff going on there. And numerology people will go crazy with numbers. The guy I mentioned the other day,
The coding guy.
yeah, he does a lot with the numbers. I think you can go way too far with them. Yes.
Is the 7 with the, I looked it up and it said the 7 which symbolizes the unity of the 4 corners of the earth and the Holy Trinity?
Could be, okay, if you say so. It was originally thought there were 7 planets, not 9 that we know, okay?
It also says the 7 days.
7 days of the week, okay. So he goes on and says, your father would have saved Pettigrew too. He said, and you look like him. Harry, I thought I saw my dad. You think the dead we loved ever truly leave us. You think that we don't recall them more clearly than ever in times of great trouble. Your father is alive in you, Harry. Shows himself more plainly when you have need of him. How else could you produce that particular Patronus? Prongs wrote again last night. When he says that Patronus, it says Prongs again, I think Dumbledore is telling us, that he knows what James's Patronus was. Because James did have a Patronus. We get told somewhere, I don't remember where. Okay? So, look, page 429, just before we go. So they're getting ready to leave. Now remember, Lupin was sick one time, and Snape had them write an essay on what? Werewolves. 2 rolls of parchment. Lupin comes back, and he says, you don't have to do it. And he has them write about vampires. Page 429. Seamus Finnegan. Wonder what they'll give us next year for Defense Against the Dark Arts. Maybe a vampire, suggested Dean. Okay? Obviously, it's not Snape, but Snape does become. Okay? So, how does the book end? What does Harry have? 1 for next year.
Permission to go to.
Permission to go to Hogsmeade. And what else? What can he use against his aunt and uncle?
The murderer of Sirius is a wanted murderer.
My godfather is a mass murderer. And he likes to keep dibs on me.
Don't need to mention the innocent.
Yeah, and which of course he's not going to mention the whole, but he's innocent part. Okay? What was Harry's happy thought that allowed him to create the Patronus that defeated over 100 Dementors? Keep going. That's first part. In living with his godfather. Godfather. What kind of term is that?
Christian.
It's a Christian term. It's a very Christian term. When does one become a godparent? When a child is baptized. Okay? What's the purpose of a godparent? It's not put the, cotton in your mouth. Make you happy. It's not that.
In case the parents die.
It's in case the parents die, the godparent can, doesn't always, because sometimes you get different guardians arranged, but can become the guardian also, and more specifically, within active Christianity, it's to ensure that the child is raised right, is taught the right things. Are we told anywhere in these books, especially the first three, I'll even go to the first four, that Harry's family was quote-unquote Christian of any sort? No. Do we have any indication that Harry's family had any religious leanings? Nope. Do we have any indication that Harry has any religious ideas at all? No. It's almost like he's never even heard the word God. I mean, it's really interesting when you look at the books that way. First three books, no reference, you don't even hear a thank God. Book 4, you hear it, I believe, once. Starting books 5, and when it explodes. Okay? And you start hearing a lot of, especially books 6 and 7, a lot of thank God, thank God, thank God. And there becomes also in 6 and 7 a lot more talk about the soul.
Kind of starts in this book, doesn't it? With like the Dementors taking the soul.
Yeah, it does with this book. But we're going to actually see in book 7, Dumbledore and Snape kind of debate about the difference between soul and mind. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. No class next week. The week after that, Goblet of Fire, I don't know how, in one night. Though we can skip an awful lot. Like we'll skip all the Quidditch match and